For those of you who are not aware, Anna Hazare is a Gandhian rights activist who had started a fast unto death at Jantar Mantar in New Delhi demanding the passing of the Jan Lokpal bill. Hazare called off his hunger strike on the 9th of April 2011 after a 98-hour protest. So we'll be focusing on some of the key features of the Jan Lokpal bill, starting with what is a Lokpal, then describing how the Lokpal members are selected, Lokpal's jurisdiction or Lokpal's power, what actions will the Lokpal take under what scenario, how will the Lokpal provide relief to the common man, how will the Lokpal provide protection to the whistleblowers. We will also describe who are these whistleblowers. What will ensure that the Lokpal won't corrupt itself? And finally, protection against false complaints. The Jan Lokpal bill is essentially an anti corruption bill. And from that, a Lokpal is an anti corruption institution. So, when we are talking about the structure of the Jan Lokpal bill, the bill requires us to have at the central government level a body known as the Lokpal, which will accept all the corruption complaints against the central government departments. And this thought will be also applied to all state levels, wherein the state government will also have a department called as the Lokayukta. So these anti-corruption institutions will be known as the Lokpal at the center level, and in all the states they'll be known as the Lokayuktas. So when we're talking about the structure, we'll be talking about how independent these bodies are. So their independence can be judged from three factors. First of all, their administrative independence. Administratively, these bodies are just like a Supreme Court or the Election Commission. So, administratively, their decisions will be free from any kind of government interference. Next up is financial independence. Now, financially, all their expenses will be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. Now, all the expenses of the government are charged from this Consolidated Fund of India. Next is the Lokpal will also have independence over assessing how much manpower it requires, and it will hire accordingly. It will hire from existing government employees or directly from the market. That is really up to the Lokpal. So once Lokpal comes into picture, what will happen to the existing anti-corruption bodies? They will be merged with the Lokpal. Similarly, at the state level, the anti corruption wings of the police department or the state vigilance departments would be merged into the Jan Lokayuktas. Now, the bill states that the process of selection of the members is transparent and participatory. So, the center we have 10 members and a chairperson, all of whom are selected by a selection committee. The selection committee would comprise of the Prime Minister, the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, two youngest judges of the Supreme Court, two youngest chief justices of the High Court, comptroller and auditor general, and finally the chief election commissioner. So these people will form the selection committee, and the selection committee will then select these members from a pool of shortlisted candidates given to them by the search committee. The search committee will have 10 members, 5 of which will be selected by the selection committee from retired CAGs and CECs, and the rest 5 of them will be selected from these 5 from the civil society. Once a search committee is formed, it will invite recommendations from various eminent people like journalists, academics, and these names will be then put up in a public website and public feedback will be required. Then, after deciding amongst themselves, the search committee will choose 3 times the number of vacancies and provide all the names to the selection committee. The selection committee will then make the final selection, and finally our Lokpal will be formed. In addition to that, all meetings of the selection committee and the search committee will be made public and will be video recorded. In the case of the judiciary, a judge can be removed by the impeachment process. Now, Jan Lokpal Bill doesn't seek to change that. But if a person wants to register an FIR against any Supreme Court or High Court judge, he has to first appeal to the Chief Justice of India. Now, the Chief Justice has to grant permission, only then the FIR can be registered. The Jan Lokpal Bill says that the permission should not be sought from the Chief Justice of India. Instead, a 7 member bench of the Lokpal should decide over whether or not this permission has to be given. And after this FIR is registered, the police or the CVI investigates and prosecutes if a case is made under the existing system. Now, Lokpal would not have any power to remove the judges or award any sort of punishment. Now, this, if there is a case, then it would go to the normal courts for trial and punishment. Now, in the case of elected politicians, including prime ministers and chief ministers, a Lokpal can start the investigations, but only if it has the permission from a full bench of the Lokpal or a Lokayukta. Now, the Lokpal may recommend the removal of every minister except the prime minister to the governor or the president. Again, the recommendation has to be made with the permission of a full bench of the Lokpal and the Lokayuktas. Now, in the case of bureaucrats, if a person complains at a certain office of the Lokpal or the Lokayukta, the citizen's complaint is transferred to the appropriate office within 5 days. Once it reaches the appropriate office, all the investigations regarding the case has to be completed within 1 year. If the Lokpal thinks that the case is strong, a ban on the transfer of his assets and the beneficiary's assets is made. This is done to ensure that as soon as the accused gets a whiff of his case, he comes to know that he is not going to be spared. So he transfers all the assets to a different place so as to save himself. But the Lokpal ensures that as soon as a strong case is sought out, a ban on the transfer of his assets and the assets of the person who benefits from the accused as well is made out. After this, two simultaneous departmental proceedings take place, wherein first the accused is given a chance to be heard. If he is a joint secretary and above, then he is given a chance to be heard by the Lokpal members himself. Otherwise, he is heard by a bunch of senior members or officers of the Lokpal. After pondering on the case for a while, the Lokpal decides what sort of a penalty is to be awarded and if dismissal of job can be a probability. Simultaneously, a prosecution is filed in court, and the court is required to give its order within 1 year max. If found guilty, the person goes to jail and all the losses that the government has ensued is recovered from him. Now, Lokpal ensures that all politicians, judges, and bureaucrats submit a statement of assets that they possess. This statement is then publicized on a public website. In addition to that, after each election, the assets mentioned by the candidate in the asset declaration is verified, and any undeclared assets are deemed to have been obtained by corrupt means and they are investigated upon. Now, presently, the maximum punishment for corruption is 7 years. The bill seeks to increase this punishment to a life sentence. Now, this was the punishment in case of politicians, judges, or bureaucrats. Now, in the current system, there is nothing for the person who bribes the politicians, judges, or any government officers. The Jan Lokpal bill deems any person who bribes any government official also to be corrupt. On that note, how does the Lokpal ensure that no common man bribes a government official? Every government department prepares something known as the Citizens Charter. This charter consists of all the jobs performed by the department and the jobs assigned to which officers and the time to be taken for the completion of each job. Now, supposing a government department does not follow this charter, a complaint can be made to the head of this department. Now, this head of the department acts as the public grievance officer also. The public grievance officer is required to redress the complaint within a period of 30 days. And then, if the complainant is still not satisfied, he can go to the vigilance officer in any Lokpal or a Lokayukta. The vigilance officer takes up the case, solves it within 30 days, and imposes penalty on the guilty officers, which is then given as a compensation to the complainant. If the complainant is still not satisfied, they can approach the chief vigilance officer. Officers against whom the complaint is being made can be given a chance to appeal against the High Court. A whistleblower is anyone who raises a voice against corruption. Now, they need to be protected. So, the bill ensures that the Lokpal is responsible for protection of the whistleblowers. This means that should these whistleblowers be harmed in any way, the concerned officer in Lokpal who is responsible for the protection is charged with criminal charges. Now, if the whistleblower complains to Lokpal that he is being mentally harassed, then the Lokpal has to see into this matter within a period of max 1 week. If there is a physical threat of some sort, then the Lokpal will reach the whistleblower within a period of few hours at the most, or 1 week, depending on the urgency of the problem. Now, the protection of the bill against false complaints is another provision to ensure that nobody who does not have a base and is just trying to harass officials is coming and complaining. However, if a case is dismissed due to weak evidence, that is not considered under this category. How to ensure that the Lokpal members don't corrupt themselves? For that reason, the bill says that the Lokpal needs to be completely transparent. Now, what does that mean? Transparency is implied in the fact that every Lokpal and has to hear out every complaint made to it. If any case is closed, all the records have to be made public. Now, Lokpal will publish every month on its website the number of cases it receives, number of cases it disposed, the reasons of disposal, and all such details regarding all cases. So, now we'll come to another provision of what happens when the Lokpal staff is corrupt. If a Lokpal staff is found to be corrupt and the allegations are proved to be right, then he is removed within a period of 1 month and he faces a criminal charge. Now, if a Lokpal member is supposed to be removed and is found to be corrupt, then the appeal has to be made to a Supreme Court or the respective High Court. Now, these courts will provide a special investigation team which will again submit a report within 3 months. Now, after this report is done, on the basis of this report, the courts will make a decision whether or not the member has to be removed. This sums up all the important features of the Jan Lokpal Bill. This video was brought to you by Unacademy. Don't forget to give your feedback on our Facebook page.